Okay, it's all yours, Jennifer.
Thanks, Wendy. Welcome, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about ideas for online student engagement. You'll be able to access these slides and this information and the recording after the web conference is over at http://tiny.cc/AIA engage, as you can see at the bottom of your screen. And just to let you know, you can't click on that now. You do need to type it into your browser, and it is case sensitive, but we'll remind you of that again at the end of the session today. So today our presenters are Wendy Tietz with Kent State, myself from University of South Florida, and Tracy Miller-Nobles from Austin Community College. And I just want a little housekeeping item. If you have any questions, then please use the Q&A box for questions, and we'll make sure to save some time at the end to answer your questions. And now we're going to go through our 12 tips and ideas for online student engagement, and I'm going to turn it over to Wendy.
Thank you. So I'm going to go through a few tips, and I want to start by saying we're going to give you 12 tips, and by no means are any of us saying you should do all these things. The idea is to pick out one or two that you can do, and you don't want to overwhelm your students. You don't want to overwhelm yourself. We know that right now is an overwhelming time for most of us. So first thing we're going to start with is GroupMe messaging. And GroupMe messaging is a mobile group messaging service. It's owned by Microsoft. It is free, and the size limit is 500. And what this allows you to do is your students and you can text each other and without revealing your cell phone number. So you can use it on Android, on iOS. You can also use it on your computer. And I wanted to show you, so this is just a basic screenshot of what it looks like. You'll see everybody, you can send a message to everyone that everyone will get it. And you can also create polls, create an event, share photos and documents. And I wanted to show you one that I shared this morning. So the message goes there, and then we have the different things you can do with it. And this morning, I put out a poll to my GroupMe with my students, and I asked them, how are you feeling about the semester in general now? And we could see, this was very early, this was right after I started the poll. A lot of students said the classes are going well. We had some bumps, a little nervous, not great. And since I've done that, I've gotten another 20 or 30 responses. And I'd say most of the students are somewhere in that a little nervous category. And I think we would classify us as well. But it's really nice to be able to just do a poll about anything. And this poll, I set it to expire tomorrow morning. And it's a way that I can reach my students, that I can talk to my students, because we know they're not checking email necessarily all the time. So this is just a way for them to opt in. And I will say, when I use GroupMe, it is entirely optional. There is no requirement. I'm not doing anything in GroupMe that doesn't come through somewhere else in the course. But it's just a way for students to feel a little more connected. Because I think with everybody using remote, we have to make ways that students can connect with each other even, because they're all going through withdrawal as well as us. So that was my first tip. Next up, so I myself have live online sessions. They are optional because I record them. But what I do when I have my live sessions is I ask questions with polling technology. And you can do this with any polling software. And I also have an option where students can watch the recording and they can also answer the questions then. So it gives me a way to ask how my students are doing, test their knowledge in a real safe way. And I do want to put a plug in on Thursday. We're going to be talking in our webinar on Thursday about polling systems and how you can use them both live in class online and asynchronously online, because you can do both. And we'll be talking about different tools. So that's a plug for Thursday. Now, this is just an example when I do a polling question in class, because I'm offering it live online and recorded. I always make sure the question itself shows up in the recording so the students get to see the question. They're just not kind of fumbling saying, what did she say or what did they do? So this is just what I do. Okay, my next tip for creating engagement, very simple, and a lot of these tips are very simple. You can incorporate this one. Insert local examples in your videos, and this will spark interest and discussion, and it can be really short and simple. It doesn't have to be elaborate. So on Monday, I did this. This happens to be a house in downtown Kent. I'm at Kent State, and I was talking in class on Monday. This is live online. I was talking about the relative sales value method, and I wanted an example of having land and the house. So I picked this house because I knew it went up for sale and was sold in 2015, and it actually was sold from an attorney to a rental group. And this is the chat that happened in class as I was showing it. I had a student that actually lives there, and she was like, that's my house. And she hasn't spoke all semester, and then she just chatted the rest of the class. So it was like her breakthrough moment was I showed her house. And so little examples like that, you can get people more comfortable like talking. And so even though you're not physically with them, it's a way to connect to your local. And she's not living there right now, of course, but it was just really kind of a neat thing that happened during class. The other thing, another tip I have is Kahoot. Kahoot is a free tool, and it can be either live online or you can do it asynchronously. So with Kahoot, you could do something as simple as put together 8 review questions, put them out there for 2 days, and then students can answer them and compete for the top spot. And again, Thursday, we're going to be talking about Kahoot as well, but I want to show you. So with Kahoot, you have a question out there, students will sign in. You can either do it live online or outside of class, and you have the question there, and then the students will answer it. And then this, when it closes, this is doing it live, it closes, and it tells me right then that 4 students got it right, 2 did not. And then what it does is it gives the students how they're doing after each question. Now the names on the left are completely anonymous. They're generated by Kahoot. And so the students know where they are, but no one else knows where they are. And then at the end of the review, it gives them the place of who placed where. And it is 5 categories now they're actually doing. And it works the same way if you're doing it asynchronously. You have platforms and who wins. And it's all anonymous, so you don't, there's no risk to students. So first of all, a student doesn't have to feel embarrassed. But secondly, you don't have to worry about FERPA violations because you're not collecting any information from students. And I have had really good luck with using Kahoot for competitions outside of class on review material. And again, we'll talk about that on Thursday, but it's not for any credit. And I'm just trying to engage students with the material rather than just saying, watch this video and answer the questions. So it's just another opportunity. And then my final tip, I'm calling it Therapy Dogs and Cats of Class. So I asked students to submit photos of their pets to be used in the next day's class session. So here's what happened. So Snapchat had a filter that was meet my work from home coworker. And I guess that could be my husband, but it was my cat, right? So that's Jubilee. And I thought, well, I'm going to put that in my presentation for Monday. So I did this Monday, and I said, hey class, why don't you email your pet pictures to me, and I'll feature one in class each day. And I don't know if you can see on the right-hand side the discussion board that's going up, but I had 2 students go, hi Jubilee, or Jubilee's precious. And so that kicked it off. And then I started getting more pictures. So this is Ding Dang. Ding Dang is named after a magical creature, and it's a cartoon creature, and Ding Dang, that's the derivation of the name. And this student actually went to a shelter and adopted Ding Dang. And so I got a little lesson on Ding Dang and where Ding Dang's name came from, and that was super awesome. And that's going to go in class tomorrow. This is Lulu. and Lulu was also a rescue cat. We also have Crosby and Nim came in, and I'm getting messages from students when they're sending me their pictures of their animals about, well, you know, Crosby's following me around the house and won't let me out of his sight. He doesn't know why I'm here, but it gives students something to chat with me in a lighthearted manner, and it certainly isn't taking up that much class time. And it kind of lends a sense of levity to the class, which I think we really do need in these times, to not be all business and to show our compassion and to show our human side. And I've really been enjoying this as well. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer.
Thanks, Wendy. So tip number 6 is using social media. I use both Instagram and Snapchat pretty frequently in my class. I use it to make announcements or reminders for students. I also use both to reinforce topics in the course. That's probably the most that I use it for. I also will sometimes pose questions to the class, and the students can answer me either by messaging me back on Snapchat or on Instagram under the picture I post. They will also private message me sometimes to ask me questions. So I usually tell students if they just have a quick question that can be easily answered on Snapchat or Instagram, I'm happy to answer it. Otherwise, you know, I direct them to email. And I do think, especially during these times, I think social media, Instagram and Snapchat definitely makes you feel or seem more real to the students, that you're actually out there in the world too, and maybe having some of the same struggles as they are. So I'll kind of show you a little bit about how I use that. The advantages, I think, to using social media, obviously free to use and very easy to set up. I promise you, I am not a social media guru by any means. I used Snapchat first at the suggestion of Wendy a few years ago and had to have my daughter set it up, but it was literally set up in 5 minutes. And most students already use both of these tools, Snapchat and Instagram. I think Instagram seems to be kind of taking over a little bit. When I look at the two platforms, I'm still using both. I like Instagram in some ways a little bit better because the pictures stay, where for Snapchat it only stays for 24 hours. And on Instagram, I can post things and I can hashtag financial accounting or managerial accounting, and it stays so students can continually go back and review those. So if they, you know, miss a Snapchat picture in the 24-hour period and they don't save it, you know, or download it to their phone, then they might miss something I post. Disadvantages, I think probably the big disadvantage is students are a little hesitant, I think, sometimes, because I put it in my syllabus how they can follow me, and I have a separate you know, professional account. It's prof_Canis, so feel free to follow me, but they have to trust that you're not going to follow them back, and I reiterate that many times. So I think some students maybe are a little afraid to add you because they don't want you to see what they're doing on social media, but I never add a student back. And it can be a little bit inconvenient if you're doing this on your phone to switch. If you do have already a personal Snapchat or Instagram account, it can be a little cumbersome to switch between the two accounts. I've occasionally taken an Instagram photo, especially on my professional account, and posted it thinking I was putting it on my professional account, but put it on my personal account, which uploads to my personal Facebook. So, you know, my small group of friends on Facebook are wondering why they're getting these accounting pictures. But anyway, kind of fun. So I've got a few examples here of how I've used it. This is what Instagram looks like if you take your picture and then off to the side or underneath. So here's an example where we were talking about job costing. I usually try to post pictures each week of whatever the topic is that we're covering in class that week to kind of reinforce it. So this was taken, and this is a job costing, referring to job costing, and you can see I can hashtag managerial accounting, and I'll put a plug in. This is some of my son's art, so I can also plug his art a little bit, which is fun. The next one I have is actually also an Instagram photo. And this was taken a few weeks ago. This is a financial accounting photo, but I think I was home for Martin Luther King Day or something, but these are my neighbors across the street. I did get their mom's permission to post this photo, but they had their little stand set up out here and they were making jewelry. So I placed an order with them, but it was a great opportunity to not only support local business, but to also show my students, you know, the debits and credits that would need to be made, and got tons and tons of responses and messages about this photo. And actually one student messaged me and said, oh my God, I babysit those kids. So that was kind of neat. It's a unique family. There's 4 of the kids shown here, but there's actually 5 in total. So nice big family across the street. So I got a lot of comments on that one. That was fun. And then next, I have a couple of examples of what Snapchat looks like if you're not familiar with that. So this is also kind of reinforcing when we were talking about bonds, and also taking a picture of some recently built dorms at University of South Florida. So kind of a current event mixed with bonds that we were talking about in class that week. So this is kind of what Snapchat looks like, where you take a picture and then you can just caption it right on the picture and then you just upload it and send it out. So this is a snapshot of what Snapchat would look like if you did a picture in Snapchat. And then next, here's a reminder. So the students also seem to really like memes. So I also use it for reminders. So I'll put things on Snapchat and Instagram. This is Instagram, but usually I do final exam reviews. So this was just a quick thing to get their attention, but then to also give them a reminder of when the reviews were going to be happening. So that was around Christmas time. They usually seem to enjoy those a lot. The next one is also a reminder, and this was last fall. This meme was going around a lot, so I kind of created this, and our Tableau projects were due that night, and I got tons of comments from students. I posted it on both Snapchat and Instagram, and they absolutely loved it and thought it was hilarious. So anyway, so that was kind of fun. Definitely get responses from them with the memes. And then here's actually a couple of my favorites. The picture on the left, I had given my final exam in financial accounting, and then this student actually Snapchatted me this picture, and what it is she created her own ugly Christmas sweater to go to an ugly Christmas sweater party, and proudly sent this picture to me, and it's the statement of cash flows down below, and they had just taken their final exam that morning. So I had tons of comments. I got it, you know, obviously had her permission to repost it. So then she was thrilled. She made it to my Snapchat account, and I got tons and tons of comments about everybody agreeing that that's about the ugliest Christmas sweater you could find right there. So I just thought the creativity in that was fantastic. And then a little Snapchat into my, or a little snap or a little photo of my personal life. I think the students really love to see not just personal, but also professional activities I'm doing. Obviously, I'm not doing too many except from the comfort of my desk right here. These days, but usually I'll take pictures of either some professional activities or conferences I'm attending, and I think that's important to show them. And then this was a Halloween picture, just wishing everybody a happy Halloween, and they usually tend to, you know, anything, dogs, cats, you know, little kids, they always tend to love that or respond to that. So also a way to just kind of engage them and make you seem more real to them. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tracy.
Great, thank you. So our next idea is group problem solving. So if you're using a learning management system, you can assign students into groups through your learning management system, and then you can create an assignment that the students have to solve, and then they have to turn in. You can either do this synchronously or you can do it asynchronously. You could give each group a different set of problems that they have to solve, or they could all be the same problem. If you're using a live online class, you could assign students in groups and put them into their own group working areas using Teams or Blackboard Collaborate, and students could work on the problem and then come back and report back to the larger class. After the groups have completed the problems, you can post those questions in your learning management system, and this will allow students to have additional practice related to the group problem solving questions that you assign. Another tool that you can use in your learning management system is to have students prepare a video assignment. So some of you may be struggling with how you're going to have your students do a project that maybe you already had on the syllabus. And maybe they have a class presentation that you had scheduled, and you don't have to redo that. You can just simply have your students do that assignment now as an online video submission. So there's a variety of different ways that you can do this. You can have students make a video of their choice using a real-world example related to the concepts that you're discussing in class. Students can use free software, Screencast-O-Matic, which we're going to be talking more about tomorrow, Wednesday morning, in our how to create video webinar that we're doing. And then you can grade these videos that your students prepare, provide them feedback using audio or video feedback in the learning management system. So here's an example of one that I do in my tax research class. So in this tax research class, they've got an email from a client, and the client has received a letter from the IRS that says that they're going to be under audit. And so the students have to prepare a short video presentation to the client addressing the client's questions. And so you see on this next screen, I provide the students with a view of all the requirements. So they have a rubric, they have the information that they have to cover. And on the right-hand side of your screen, this is one of our ACC students where he is answering the questions to the client. They're short videos. The students have to use a webcam, and then they also have to have a PowerPoint slide that goes along with it. It usually takes me, these classes are about 24 students big. It usually takes me about 2 to 3 minutes to grade the videos because I have them submit the text of the video so I can read quickly through the text, and then I can scan the video to get an idea for their presentation styles and give them some feedback on their presentation styles. So it's a really great tool if you already have scheduled some type of presentation for this semester. Don't cancel it, just move it online. Your students can definitely do it online, just like they would do in the classroom. And you know, I was thinking this morning about this, that this is a good skill for students to learn because we're all having to learn how to interact in an online webinar environment now, and so this is a good skill for them as they move into the workforce. So another area that we have as an opportunity for engagement is to have required online sessions. So I have, one of my classes was a traditional classroom experience, and it met on Monday nights. And we're still going to continue to meet on Monday nights. We'll use GoToMeeting or something like Zoom to have our regularly scheduled meeting time. I'm going to go ahead and record the meeting so that students, if there's any issues with their software or connectivity, they'll be able to watch a recording later. And then I'm planning on doing interaction during that time by asking polling questions like Wendy talked about. I'm going to use the idea of having students share a picture, maybe of their dog or their cat or maybe their family, just so that we can have some interaction during the class time. And then another area that we can utilize also, when you're moving into the required online sessions, what I encourage you to do, and I'm getting ready to send this out to my students, is that you have them practice it before they come into class that first time. So I'm sending links to my students so that they can know how to set up their audio and also set up their webcam. I'm encouraging students to get a webcam or to use a webcam because it leads to, I think, much better interactivity in the classroom experience. I'm teaching students how to learn how to mute and unmute. If you have a webcam, how do you share it? Also showing them ahead of time how to use the chat features to ask questions. So all of those things I'm sending out to students ahead of time so that they can practice before we get into our first class session, which for me will be on Monday, March 30th. So that's just a great idea for making sure that students are set up and ready to go. And so on the next screen, you'll see a link for what I'm sending out to my students. And so that's going to be available for them starting this week. Another great tool if you're looking for student engagement is to find resources on YouTube. So there's so many interesting videos on YouTube that are related to the discipline that you teach. Like in accounting, there's some great videos on how it's made, or Shark Tank, and find videos that are related to the topics that you're discussing. And you can either ask students to answer multiple choice questions about the video, or you can have students post to a discussion board related to something interesting they found about the video or how it related to the topic that you're discussing. Also, if you're looking for additional resources for your students, there are some really great videos out there that other faculty have prepared. Don't feel like you have to do your own videos. Find some other resources and pull those into your online courses. We all need to share together right now so that you don't feel like you have to do everything from scratch. Feel okay with sharing, with using resources that other people have created. So I'm going to pass it to Jennifer. She's going to talk about one of the videos that she uses in her online courses.
Thanks, Tracy. And yeah, this is just a quick example. Actually, this is a discussion board post, and I have them watch a video and read a couple of quick news articles about a gentleman that he was actually a University of Central Florida student not too long ago. He's graduated in the last couple of years, but he actually was on Shark Tank. So you can see his picture on the next slide, and his video is on YouTube. You can just Google his company, which is Oh Dang Hummus. And what's kind of neat about his company is at the end, when you watch the little clip, then he was funded. The Sharks did offer him some money. And then just the other articles below here kind of talk about what he's done since that time. So I found some more current articles, and the students seem to really like applying what they've learned in managerial accounting and seeing how actually a real business started by a student just like them could use some of the managerial accounting concepts that we're talking about in class. So I always really enjoy reading their discussion board posts because they can see how relevant some of the things we're covering really are. And it takes them maybe, you know, the whole video is only a couple of minutes long, and I always keep the articles short, but they really like the local interest there. And I'll pass it back to Tracy.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. What a great idea. So our last two tips for you are to utilize discussion boards in your learning management system. So I always have a discussion board for student questions. If you joined us yesterday in our online office hours webinar, we talked about this yesterday also, that it's a great way to encourage students to ask all their questions on the discussion board. The reason why this is important is it eliminates the frequency of emails that you get answering the same question. Also, in many cases, students are, the fellow students can respond back a little quicker than I can respond back. And so they're helping each other faster than I can get back to their questions. So this is a great tool for you to use discussion boards to help answer any student questions. And you can just set that up in your learning management system. Another way to use discussion boards is to create student engagement. So I do this a couple of different ways. I have a discussion board question for every chapter that we're doing. So in some of the courses that my students, in some of the courses that I teach, I'll use the review questions at the end of the chapter textbook, and I'll assign a different review question to every student. And then I have the students review, they have to review 2 other students' questions, comment about whether the question was correct, their answer was correct, and then provide additional information related to their question that they answered. So this is a great way for students to be talking to each other. It's also a great way for students to review some of the more basic concepts, which we typically tend to do at the beginning of class when we're having a traditional classroom experience. And then the way I encourage the students to do a good job on answering the questions is that I tell them that I will use some of the discussion questions as essay questions for the exam. And so they always do a good job of answering the questions. And of course, they're also graded. The other thing you can do is I have had for financial accounting, I've had students look at annual reports and answer questions about annual reports. That's another great way to do discussion questions on the discussion board. And on the next slide, Wendy will pass it over there. And so you can see, here's just an example in my tax research course, a student answering information about who's allowed to represent organizations before the IRS. And you can see 2 other students communicated about whether that was correct and who else could be included in that information. So discussion boards are really great in providing student engagement. I always grade my discussion boards. So you can see here, this one I actually used, Wendy might recognize this. This is actually one of her accounting in the headlines postings that she did. And so I had students read the situation related to this booster club, and then they had to post into the discussion board. But I set the discussion board up so that students couldn't see each other's postings before they made their first initial post. So they had to make their first initial post, and then they had to go back and respond to another student's post. This worked really well in the discussion where we were covering in financial accounting, internal controls and fraud. And so this, I just pulled it down from Wendy's website, Accounting in the Headlines, and it was a great way to generate some conversation. So now I'm going to pass it over to Wendy.
Okay, we're not going to spend real long on here, but talking about all these different tools that we can use to promote engagement, there is a theory that if you have a class that requires high bandwidth, a lot of activity, and a lot of immediacy, meaning you have to be there right now, that's where all the energy comes from, and that's really hard for some students. So from an inclusive standpoint, we want to make sure that we don't do too much that's live online right now, because that's going to be hard for some students. We can have it sometimes, but having the recording option says, okay, then we have low immediacy, still high bandwidth for those that don't have great internet. So we talked about those. And then the tried and true things like the discussion boards, those are great. They can reach everyone, even though they seem kind of boring on one hand. They're not jazzy, but they're tried and true. So those are a good thing. And then in the lower quadrant with low immediacy, but a little bit more high bandwidth, are like the group chat and group messaging. So we want to make sure when we're teaching online that we get things from all the quadrants and we don't concentrate in that real high effort quadrant. Okay, so what we're going to go to now, just want to encourage you to follow our blog. We do have other webinars coming up, and if you're accounting, we do have data analytics material on our blog for more regular times, right? And then we have some upcoming webinars, and I'm going to turn this over to Tracy so she can talk about our upcoming webinars.
Perfect, great. Yeah, so today, of course, we had our webinar related to our online student engagement. And I do see that Chris asked in the question and answer. Chris joined us yesterday in our online office hours webinar. And we will be posting all of the recordings to the webinars on our website, accountingisanalytics.com. So just keep an eye on that website. You should that link should be going up very shortly with a link to all of the recordings for all of our webinars. Tomorrow, like I mentioned, we're doing a webinar on how to record videos, different options to record videos. On Thursday, we're going to talk more in depth about different polling options that are available for you. And then on Friday, I'm super excited about Friday. On Friday, we're going to talk about options for how to write on your screen. So many of us Many of us teach accounting, and of course, we like to work out problems and write problems. And so what are some options for being able to do that? We're going to talk about that on Friday. Again, remember, if you
And
can't—
Tracy,
Oh, yeah.
Tracy, I just wanted to break in there for a minute. If you attended yesterday's webinar, I am emailing that out with the slides and the link to the recording. But as you can imagine, life's pretty busy right now, so it'll get out today or tomorrow. So generally, a day or two after the webinar, you're going to get an email with it, and feel free to share those with your colleagues as well.
Yeah, great.
Back to you, Tracy.
Absolutely. And if anybody is still interested in analytics, we are still doing a couple webinars on accounting analytics. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to be hosting a webinar specifically talking about Power BI. And next week, Jennifer will be hosting a webinar specifically talking about Tableau. So please, if you're interested in that, please join us for those webinars. Now, I do see that we have some questions, and you know, I wore green today. Wendy and Jennifer, do you have green on? No?
Not really.
Well, you know, I think that you may not have to wear green because you're a good accountant, right? So, so happy St. Patty's Day to everyone. Let's Wendy, I think we've got some questions. I know we're a little over time, but let's go through and see if we could get to some of those questions.
Okay. How do you give grading and feedback on videos in Blackboard? Which one of you wants to take that one?
I'm not sure exactly. I'm clear on the question. Are you talking about, I'm not sure if she's talking about student submitted videos or if she's talking about us giving video feedback. But if they're student submitted videos, then usually I put out, and Tracy, I know you do this as well, but usually I give them a rubric ahead of time, and it's very detailed as to what is expected to be part of the video. So they kind of know ahead of time what the grading will be. So I try to not keep it too open-ended, so it's very detailed as to what they can expect. And then the feedback, normally then we watch, you know, I'll watch the videos and then give them feedback. And if they don't receive full points on it, it's more about, I really liked this, but you were missing this, and that's why you didn't receive full credit. But I don't know, Tracy, if you want to chime in a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. So I build in Blackboard, which is the learning management system we use here. I build a grading rubric in Blackboard. It's super easy to do. And then it makes the grading go so fast because I just watch the video. And then as I'm watching the video, I'm clicking off the different things in the grading rubric. I put some notes in there related to their presentation style, usually just give them some suggestions. The grading rubric automatically calculates the student's score, and then I hit submit, and then I'm done. So yeah, heavily rely on the grading rubrics. And then sometimes if I feel like I've seen kind of the same thing for all of my students, then I may post an announcement on Blackboard that says, hey, you know, I just got all your presentations graded, and here's a couple of general comments that I have related to everyone's presentations. But it works really great. I've been doing these video presentations in my tax research course for about the last 4 semesters, and it's one of the things that I really enjoy doing, and my students also really like it.
Okay, thank you. And I think we're just about out of time. I just do want to mention to Leanne. Leanne was asking if Tracy would send out her instructions on how to participate online, and we will make sure that happens. So thank you all for joining us, and have a great day, and maybe we'll see you later this week.
Great, thank you. Happy St. Patty's Day.
Bye.